Hi, my name is Lou, and I'm an amateur photographer from Maryland. This is my first camera review of any kind, so I figured I'd do it on a camera that's very near and dear to me, and is quite a great shooter, and that is Polaroid SX-70. The Polaroid SX-70 was the first integral instant film camera ever released, entering the market in late 1972. Designed to replace earlier pack and roll film instant cameras like these, the SX-70 was the first instant camera to use the classic integral film stock that has become synonymous with Polaroid. This camera series was Edwin Land's magnum opus, having fully realized Land's goal of a high-quality and easy-to-use camera that produced sharp, instant results without needing any extra steps. You simply focused, took the picture, and out it came. The series stayed in production in its original form until 1981, with gradual modifications and variants, most prominently the introduction of sonar autofocus onto the camera in 1978. Later variants included the SLR 680 and 690, which used 600 film and had built-in internal flashes, along with the Mint SLR 670, which are refurbished original SX-70s that had been gifted manual control. To open the camera, you first lift the front of the mirror hood. After this, carefully pull up on the back of the mirror hood to open the camera. On some cameras, it will snap into place in one motion. In others, you need to push the camera face slightly until you feel it lock into place. To load a film pack, push down on the film release button on the side of the camera, which will release the film door. After inserting a pack of film, close the door and make sure you feel it lock into place. At this point, the dark slide should emerge from the front of the camera. Remove the dark slide and now you're ready to shoot. When you're done with the camera, gently push the support out of the lock position and fold the camera and viewfinder down, which should lock into the original stored position. To start, let's go over focusing. Depending upon the model of SX-70 you have, the focusing screen might be a plain ground glass, which is common on both the original SX-70 and early sonar models, or a split prism finder, which is what my Alpha 1 has, along with Model 2, most sonar models, and the SLR 680 and 690. One model uses zone focusing, and that's the Model 3, which lacks SLR capabilities and uses a simple viewfinder cut into the mirror hood. However, we won't be focusing on that in this review, only the cameras that have SLR focusing capabilities. Start by bringing your eye to the viewfinder and setting your finger on the focusing dial, which is located above the red shutter button. Rotate the dial until you see a clear image form in the viewfinder. The SX-70s generally have a focusing range of 10.4 inches to infinity, so keep that in mind while composing your image. SX-70 film has an ISO of 160, so be mindful of this when setting your exposure, which is done on the dial located above the light meter. A good rule of thumb should be 1/3 towards darken, however this will vary as the light meter in your camera might have aged differently to the meter in another camera, so you will need to experiment with the exposure settings. Also, do not cover the light meter with your finger, otherwise the camera will be unable to properly expose the frame. When you're ready to take a shot, push down on the bright red shutter button. The camera will take the image and eject the frame out of the bottom of the camera, and once it is fully ejected from the camera, you should remove the image and store in dim light. For example, storing the image in a camera bag, jacket pocket, or something around that is a good idea, as the film is light sensitive for the first few minutes of developing. Depending upon whether you are shooting black and white or color film, the film may take around 15 to maybe even 30 minutes to fully develop. And although you can take it out after a few minutes in the dark, I'd recommend playing it safe and letting it sit for the whole time in the dark just to avoid potential light damage. As with all Polaroid cameras, there are a bunch of unique and strange aspects of the SX-70 that might frustrate a first-time user, so I'll try to address some of them in this segment. The film and its ISO. The camera natively shoots SX-70 film, which has an ISO of 160 and is available in both black and white or color. Each pack of film gives you 8 pictures, which is 2 less than the original Polaroid stuff, so make sure to subtract 2 from the number on your frame counter when shooting so that you have an accurate idea of your exposure count. Unless you've had your camera modified to use 600 film or you are using a camera that natively supports 600 film, i.e. the SLR 680, SLR 690, or some of the Mint models, you cannot use standard 600 series film in this camera. If you want to shoot 600, you will need to purchase a special neutral density filter like these that is placed on the film pack. This low of an ISO means that the SX70 is best suited for brightly lit scenarios, such as sunny days or bright studio lights, and the camera will not perform as well in a dark or dim scenario without a flash or tripod. Flash options. All SX70 type cameras except for the SLR 680 and 690 lack internal flashes, so you will need to purchase a flash unit for the camera if you want to take shots in low light scenarios, and there are multiple options that exist for you. First, there are original old stock flash bars, which are disposable bars meant to be put on top of the flash port of the camera, and each contains 10 flashes, 5 on each side. When you have used all the flash bulbs in the bar is no longer useful and is meant to be thrown out. These are starting to get quite a bit pricey, and obviously they're a finite supply and they're all from the 70s, so they might not be reliable. So I would recommend purchasing an electronic flash unit instead. For this, there are two routes you can take. First, you can purchase an old electronic flash unit from the 70s that was designed for the camera. This is the route I went down, and I purchased an ITT Magiflash unit for my camera off of eBay. If you buy an old flash, you need to make sure it is compatible with your model of camera, as some early models and sonar cameras were not designed well for electronic flashes and are incompatible with certain models of flashes. My Magiflash is compatible with both normal and sonar variants, but not all are like this, and some earlier variants are not able to be used with earlier cameras, so please be careful. You could also choose to purchase a Mint flash bar, which is a new flash made specifically for SX70 type cameras. It's a little pricier than older flash units, but it's easier to come by and is brand new instead of being around 40-ish years old. Tripod mount. Unfortunately, not all SX70 cameras have built-in tripod mounts. The Alpha one, like the one I have, does have a built-in tripod mount, and most of the later models also have tripod mounts built in. However, the original model SX70, along with some early sonar models, lack these mounts. For these models, it is necessary to buy an adapter, which are available in both older and newer variants, that will attach to the belly of the camera and permit use of a tripod. This is necessary if you plan on shooting in low light environments without a flash, or if you want to do long exposures. Accessories galore. The SX70 cameras were relatively lucky to have a variety of unique attachments and accessories available to them. In addition to the above-mentioned flash and tripod options, other attachments exist for these cameras. There are close-up lenses, self-timers, carrying cases, filters, and more, available in varying prices and conditions online. Long exposure. To perform a long exposure with the SX70, position your camera on a tripod and place your finger over the light meter. Click the shutter button and wait for the camera to eject the film after a few seconds, making sure not to bump or move the camera during this shot. If you wish to do a longer exposure, such as say 15 or 30 seconds, open the film door immediately after pressing the shutter. However, do not remove the film, just keep the door open. This will trick a circuit in the camera into keeping the shutter open much longer than it naturally can. And when you wish to finish the exposure, simply close the door and allow the shot to eject out of the camera. For me, this SX70 holds a very special place in my heart, as it originally belonged to my grandfather, who had been the original owner of the camera since the early 1970s. I was given the camera by him at Christmas, and I have used the camera extensively over the past few months. I've taken the camera to parties, obviously pre-COVID, family outings, and photo shoots for my friend's band, and the camera has shown itself to be one of the best instant cameras I've ever used. The camera definitely has a learning curve though, especially when compared to your average 600 box camera or Instax camera. You need to be very diligent with making sure your exposure is correct, and I initially messed up the exposure on some early shots, especially when shooting indoors with a flash. Even with that, however, the camera is generally a joy to shoot with, and it produces amazing images for a Polaroid. It's also an absolute beauty of a camera. The ability to manually control focusing through the lens gives you a level of control that just simply doesn't exist on most instant cameras, and that allows for extra flexibility when it comes to creating your desired shots. This also wasn't my first Polaroid though, and I think it doesn't make for a good starter camera for instant photography. However, for those people who have experience with instant photography and want a bit more control over their images compared to your average 600 box camera, the SX70 fits the bill extremely well, and I would highly recommend it.